way around. The veto confused the hell out of me, at least, Vince, but we're going to be kicking off on the choice of North, and I think that's good to see, at least initially. At the same time, though, we're still really focusing on Furia here, because although North have a brand new team, realistically, we can't expect too much from them.
No, we can't, and they're starting on the T side to kick it off as well, so I really want to see what kind of executes that we have coming in here, what kind of regulations will be taking the forefront. Bit of an awkward engage, does come out better for Furia. Cajun knocked down to just 2 HP. And Vinny watching them push down in connector. It should be a bloodbath. There's so many Brazilians here. Henny has opened up his account with one Serato from the backside, leaving Cristo in a 1-on-3. 40 seconds, they know where he is. And if they weren't alert to his presence before, he just closed the door in their face. And Vinny will return in kind, but it's a bullet rather than the door. Furia, they take first blood on their CT side.
Yeah, strong start from them. And this is something we actually see quite commonly in pistol rounds, is that battle for connector. It seems to be one of the most focal points of the map in this term of round. But nonetheless, we are going to see a bit of an investment here. Okay, just a bit slow to purchase. Of course, I think there's going to be some focus points more so on some of the other players within this team. Of course, the likes of Cristo coming in, but he is someone that has already been in this roster once, wasn't necessarily given that AWP's role, and is someone that obviously coming in from AGF as a team that is the academy of North. So it's something they're going to look to keep. A little bit of damage being done in this round, although actually they've got it back into a somewhat doable position. If this goes wrong for Vinny, there could be some trouble here. He's actually going to clear out Cristo, no problems, and Yuri's there to support. But yeah, more so I think Korea is actually going to be a real focal point, because although he's not necessarily coming in here and expected to be the star player, he needs to make enough of an impression that, say, for example, we were looking at TMB, right, Vince, saying how good he was and is also part of the AGF Academy team. He's got to do well enough that North don't just go, well, we could just have him instead.
Exactly. That's a very good point. Obviously, they will need to put in the context of TMB wasn't playing the likes of Furia, but at the same time, yeah, absolutely. Like, you have to look at Reyes here and say, he's got to impress us in some way. It's Henny, though, that breaks open the site, and maybe he's got a few points to prove. As you said, there's been some rumors. Maybe Junior in and Henny out. Whether that takes the forefront is yet to be seen, but if he keeps to perform and keeps to putting those M4 frags down range, and then obviously later on you expect him to pick up the AWP, perhaps not. Art with his own M4, locking down long, and Yuri drops the bomb onto balloons. There's not really much that Letcro can do about this. It wasn't a hefty investment, though. North will have a full buy in the next round, but it's only one casualty in the form of Henny that goes down with the third.
That'll be the thing that interests me the most, though, is if the rumors are anything to do with, like, performance. Because from the way they're playing at the moment, like, they recently had a victory, they beat Liquid, they're playing all right, they've only just flown over to Europe, so I don't think they can expect the results to be flawless. There's a part of me that wonders if it's something to do with travel. I know that, obviously, Henny, from what we've seen in the past, was someone who was very family-focused. It could just be him being far enough away from Brazil for so long that maybe it's causing some issues. Who knows? It's all just conjecture, but I don't know. I just can't feel like it's purely performance-based to try and get rid of him. Cage him, though. That's huge. A double kill in the connector. Of course, this is somewhat of a bonus round, but they have invested into that AWP, as you mentioned. Henny needing to land some shots, but Serato retaking short B is almost going to force them in towards Henny. Push in this direction now would have some pretty big risks, and Kriaz is taking a nasty chunk along the way.
Some pretty serious ramifications depending on this trade. If Kriaz can just about hold on, throws in the Molotov, you can see what he was looking for, but maybe snatching at his chance. There's still a lot of time left. He didn't have to force that play just yet. Mounts the pressure, and he misses the AWP shot. Just have a good idea that Cristo can lock it down from that angle looking up to the site, so no need to peek in. You have the player advantage. Force North to do the work. They've got some utility, but it's all centralized on the young Dane. And he's joined by the Swede of Letcro, carrying the bomb in. Flashbang on top of it. Shadow betrays Cristo. Henny spins around, but can't land the shot. Letcro punishes him and nearly takes down Serato. If he had have picked up the kill, it would have been an interesting 1v1. But as it stands, the Brazilians have been flawless. 4-0 starts.
And that's one of those rounds that North needed to win. I think getting off to a strong start, not only in the round, but in this game was really important. And they've just been shut down by Queserado. Again, someone we know can easily take over a match. And I think in this sort of matchup, the thing that's almost harsh for North is not only have they come into this with a couple of new players, but even if this had been a roster that had been together for 6 months or a year, they're still going to be the underdog in this scenario. Like Furia have proven themselves to be one of the best teams in the world. They've come into this, they've come over to Europe to basically prove that. That's the way I have to look at this. Like, they have dominated NA. We've seen it over the last few months. They've been able to win multiple tournaments. Sure, there's been ups and downs, but you have to bear in mind that there's still powerhouses like EG and Liquid over there, and well, even Chaos starting to build a name for themselves. So they've come to Europe to try and prove, okay, we can still compete with the very best. And thus far, they've been doing pretty well. Like, sure, the first tournament, I'm going to give them a little bit of slack and just say, you know, that didn't go great. But so far, coming in here, I would expect them to dominate this match. And as said, when it comes to Inferno especially, if North get 10+ rounds going into that lower bracket match, I would feel pretty confident for them.
Yeah, I mean, Furia currently are ranked 7th in the world, North 31st. But honestly, with the 2 changes, you could probably subtract 10 or 20 world ranking points to that. You know, and that's not me being harsh or taking digs or anything. It's just the fact that in terms of strategy, it's been stripped down to the very lower levels. MSL was such an integral part. And for me, he kind of was North to a degree. And it's going to be very interesting to see kind of who picks up the mantle of the IGLing, how the tactics alter or adapt, if they even do. We saw Emmy yesterday and asked him, you know, have you just picked up basically what Crystal was doing? It's been such a short amount of time and ran with Crystal strats. He's like, absolutely not. I've brought in all my own ideas and we've been running through those. So be curious to see how much North have been able to really dip into that strategy book and what they're going to be bringing to the table. In terms of this round, though, it's kind of been taken away from them, that choice, Tom. They just have to stick with pistols. They do have an AK in the hands of Lekro, and we know he's more than capable of rattling a few heads, but where Furia have been playing, he may not get the chance. The Molotov has missed, though, and that's pretty important. And Furia, I'm not sure if they'll realize that.
Chances are they won't, but they didn't really aggress off of the angle. It might just give them a slightly worse timing. That Art is a madman. Like, there's like the rule on Overpass is that you really shouldn't fight outside Monster too often, but he doesn't abide by the rules. That's something I've learned throughout his Counter-Strike career, is that, well, it's like sort of when my mum would do something that she'd specifically told me not to do, and she would just say, don't do what I do, do as I say. And I feel like that's Art's mantra.
Yeah, kind of double standards, but he can somehow make it work. So you're like, oh, okay, fair enough.
But don't do that, Henny. It's like, but last round, you shut up.
I'm the captain of this ship. You do what I say. But North, one-on-one, in terms of trades, like, honestly, you take that when you only have 1 AK coming into the round. You take that at the best of times on the T side. You can split Fury a little bit thinner. But the problem here, Tom, is even though they get a 1-for-1, there's only 35 seconds left, and they've barely got any control over the map. They've got Connector, which is good news, but they're only just starting to move up Bathroom.
A chance, though, that they could overwhelm Henny. AWP up close, the support actually looking over towards Long. The problem is he doesn't miss too many shots, but Lekro with a tasty Deeg shot. Always been one of my favorites to watch with that weapon, and proving why once again the time, though. The bomb's on the floor. He has to just pretty much kill everyone here, although, oh, he actually fakes it. Maybe expecting them to be closer than they were, in case Cerrado's just not going to fight this. A lot of damage done. He needs to survive with this AWP. Legs Cerrado, but just about gets out of there. A worthwhile round for North, a lot of damage done, and more importantly, a decent round for Lekro. And actually, Vince, although we've spoken about the newbies, sort of the change of Gade or Gel taking over that in-game leadership role, I think Lekro is actually going to be one of the most pivotal players in this team, because towards his end in NIP, he was actually putting up some pretty decent numbers while in-game leading. I want to see if maybe in a slightly freer style with more opportunities for him to be a bit more aggressive, if he can get back to some of the initial fragging power we saw when he burst onto the scene.
For sure. I think a lot of people, as Henny is getting the pick of the frags, he was being very patient, knowing that Fury was up close with him. Arta's got a secondary AWP, and he's made it work. And the second that North get a buy into the round, they have been utterly destroyed, dismantled by Furia. A much more convincing round than the one prior. Cajun B, plenty of time, can pick up the bomb, but because he's been spotted so early on, it just allows Vinny to push around the back. So there's not really any options. There's no way that he can push in and survive. He knows it as the Furia, and they have that ruthlessness to finish him off. But yeah, I mean, Lekro, when he first came to North, there was a lot of people that are pretty hype about the move because of the guy's talent and his ability, and he's a very versatile player. As you said, he can IGL, he can also just play pretty much every role. But the issue here is, for me, Tom, who else can he feasibly rely on to be putting up the big frags and to help him out? Like, he can't do it all alone.
Yeah, that's true. And when we saw Christo, even in open, like, he was very hit and miss. Like, I think one of the days he was the MVP of the entire day. And then the other day we were talking about how TMB had almost had to, like, try and hard carry them because he just didn't turn up at all. Like, he was looking at games of, like, 11 to 15 frags, which, sure, it happens for an AWPer, especially someone as young as him, but that can't happen in a Masters. Like, he has to be at his best. And even then, that might not be enough. So, early days. But so far, it has just been the Furia show. Henny, he's been a focal point because he's been so aggressive so far, just taking picks, but normally in a, I don't want to say passive way, but in a way where he can get out of there. This time, though, he's actually going to be punished. But K Serato, he's 9-1. Only got his first death a couple of rounds ago, and since then, it has been nigh on clean for the side of Furia. They are utterly dominating, not in terms of their finances, but in terms of the rounds. There has been nothing other than that attempted clutch from Lekro. Priaz, well, unfortunately, he's not even going to get his second kill just yet. 7-0, a little bit of BM. Why not, Yuri? It's sort of like beating a dead horse as you're already 7-0 up, but why not?
Yeah, and going back to the issue that we mentioned about Lekro and maybe a lack of support structure, then you move over to Furia and it's like, right, well, any of these 5 players can absolutely take over the game and just destroy. Like, there aren't really any weak links for me. Even if you go dip down into the lower statistical players, often it's just because they're playing roles that don't really facilitate a lot of kills, and because the kills are being taken away from their heavy hitters. So North, outclassed in a lot of different metrics, Skate, though, is going to get the opening pick. The first time that I can really remember where North have actually had an advantageous position. But can they do anything with it? Because Henny is pushing up long. He is waiting to find a pixel to execute. Offgate goes in for a second. Now Yuri's gone down. B site is very vulnerable. And Vinny decides to push into the smoke of Monster to try and mitigate some of those issues, to nullify it. Henny comes out swinging with the AWP. Vinny checked the angle and had a double take, but it was too late. And finally, it seems like North will get on the board, unless Henny and K Serato pull off a masterful clutch.
They're on the wrong side of the map, which is the main problem. But for North, there are 2 players desperately low. Potential of a free kill, but Gade is on a tear. 3 kills for him in this round. He was previously an entry fragger for this side before he was an in-game leader, and before that he was an entry fragger again, so he can definitely play the role well. I think that's something that does also interest me a little bit about this team, is I feel like they have a lot of players that can sort of do multiple roles at once, so if things aren't working, they could try switching things up. At the same time, I'm not certain this will be the final roster. Like, Kriaz, from his time in Gen G, I don't want to really base too much off of that because he was literally just slot into a roster that didn't really make much sense. That was just thrown together for one event to try and, well, at least maybe keep their spot and do a bit of damage along the way. And in some of the matches, he did all right. In some of the matches, he stood in for other teams, he's done all right. But we haven't really seen him in a long-standing team that's gone for like a few months. So there's possibilities that he's a fantastic teammate and we'll see him like rise to the occasion if North give him the chance. But that's the question, because especially when it comes to like Danish and Swedish talent, there's bucket loads.
Oh yeah, it is one of those regions that is just so fortunate, blessed with tons of talent. It's been a reason why North, in particular, has been kind of disappointing in a lot of parts. But they've had all of these opportunities to pick up these youngsters that have gone on to be brighter elsewhere. And you just think, North, Why aren't you taking more risks in the past? It's good to see some of the youngsters now coming into the team, but this is a real baptism by fire as well, though, Tom. Like, Kriaz and Christo would not have played a tournament of this stature before against these kind of teams actively. And so it's asking a lot from two inexperienced players to come into this and perform really well. So this is where you need some of those veteran experienced players to take them under their wing. Lekro cracking open the head of Art and taking some control over Connector. But there is a second player here. It's Yuri to try and steady the ship.
Oh, we're going to see the rotation from north back towards long. Now, they're going to expect that somewhere around this angle, Henny will be lurking, consistently trying to find out information and basically be irritating for the opposing side. He has a little bit of support, but it's back towards the connector, so the reliance will be on him. Now, Gabe has the bomb, so a peek here would be so risky. That's so much information, and more so, they have to try and reclaim this. The flash avoided, but they have got the bomb. Actually peeks back in and does a lot of damage to Henny, who attempts to try and find another himself, but instead ends up falling. 45 seconds, though, for the T side. It's taken them a long time to gain a fairly small amount of map control, and they're being slowly surrounded by the side of Furia.
The tides are coming in. The terrorists have to brute force their way out. There's not much time to go with it either. It's dwindling away. The last few grains of sand are dropping down. And the positions of Furia are so good. They have a great read of the situation. There's one flashbang, but a beautiful entry from Kriaz. That being said, though, they get caught with grenades out. Lekro still comes out ahead. 4 seconds, and Kriaz puts the bullet into the head of Yuri. What a turnaround from North. And it's one of their youngsters, one of their new recruits that comes out massive.
I'm almost wondering if they actually had enough time to plant the bomb, because I think he got onto the site with about 4 seconds left. Now, it takes roughly 3.5, so I think he may have just about had it, but I almost wonder if it was worth just waiting those few seconds. Either way, as you mentioned, Kriaz, he's gone huge, and that's exactly what they needed. More so, to the point, Furia have now run out of cash because some of those rounds were a little bit closer. You think back to the 3K that Lekro managed to find with the Deagle, and not in too bad a spot whatsoever. Gade as well is going to start things off, and this round again, it comes down to Furia attempting to do some damage, steal a weapon, maybe bring something into the next round. They already have Vinny saving up a bit of cash, but the loss bonus isn't going to be anything too crazy. He may not still have enough to actually drop an AWP. I think he'll have exactly enough, though, just with Kevlar, but it means that he'd have to play the round without any grenades.
Deagle and P250 hoping that North overextend, make some mistakes. No reason to really save anything. May as well go all in. See how much damage you can inflict, how many bodies you can make hit the ground. But so far, it's only Furia that will be going out in coffins. And Yuri, try as he may with the Deagle, the fact that he's rattling those shots off, to me, North just pull the plug and they all move together through Monster. Clump up, make sure you keep on hold of all these guns. There's no expendable weapons. If you had a Mac 10, you'd probably just send them in. But you definitely don't want to drop the AWP or those AK-47s across to the CTs. Give them a free trade-up. Play it passively. They're playing this round perfectly. Excellent anti-eco by the Danes plus Swede. And they'll move through to a third round. So Furia being shown to be able to bleed a little bit. But I'm not going to put too much faith in a North comeback just yet, Tom. I need to see more from them.
Yeah, as well, I normally give a little bit more of a benefit of the doubt to the T side of a brand new team. Because, well, Gade is someone who's been an in-game leader before. Lekra as well, we mentioned it. So they're going to be able to come up at least with some decent ideas. I think in terms of individual entry fraggers, the role necessarily won't change. And the flashes you're going to throw, sure, there might be a little bit of problem when it comes to synergy. It's the CT side where my questions really lie. Because especially with someone who's literally just a stand-in, we know that Christo's been playing with AGF until, well, the day before yesterday, because, or maybe one before that, because we were literally casting him play for them. So they've had a few days to try and get everything working on the CT side. Maybe you don't necessarily have the right role for the right player, or you don't have those crossfires set up quite right. So even if they do well, even if they get up to like 6-7 rounds over on this T side, which even that's going to be tough, that does not mean they're going to be able to do things on the CT side just yet. So it's all a learning curve. Of course, with North, we just don't really know just yet. And I even want to say with Godsent, it was a good stack of players where you've sort of brought in another in-game leader and he's added to things. Whereas with North, they've taken out two pretty big parts of a long-standing North roster, and now they're going to have to almost reinvent everything.
Yeah, I'd be very interested to actually be able to pick the brains of one of the North players after this game. Maybe go through a couple of these ideas. Yuri, though, is picking the brains, but with bullets. However, can't transfer into a second. A lot of information was gathered in the process. So even though he only got one kill, you feel like his positioning is worth so much more. K Serato double spray with the M4, and Cajun, who's gone unseen as of yet. It stands to reason he probably would either be long or the B rotation player, so Henny will not miss his chance. And after North post up, 3 on the bounce, they've been pretty comprehensively been put back on the back foot and made to think about things once more. Whatever happens here, Furia will be leading come the second half. Anything now is just a nice bonus.
Yeah, I'm quite surprised that North don't actually check connector at all in this round. Like, if you're going for a slow walk up towards Banana, like, they would have had actually a free kill on Yuri if they just peeked down even for a second because he was looking the wrong way. Instead, the timing ends up against them, and because of that, the full rotation's available. Art doing art things. They're walking into each other in the smoke, and Kriya's actually going to win the duel. The other side of the coin for the in-game leader, K Serrata, though, the flash is flawless from Vinny. An unsung hero a lot of the time in this Furia roster, with K Serato just on an absolute tear so far today. It's still going to end up in a 3v3 situation, but now Yuri's taking map control. I feel like at this point, Vince, they're just pushing all over the map.
Yeah, that is effectively the Furia way. They are so good at doing this. One of the reasons they are so damn fun to watch, and Yuri just pops in behind again. It must be a real nightmare to play against. One of the most frustrating players in CS. He always seems to get the perfect timing on these flanks. And there's Vinny on the short pipe. Puts the bullet into Lecro. 9-3. And North had about $8,000 across a bunch of players. And now they find themselves actually in a really awkward position where they may not even go for a full purchase. It's going to be interesting to see what happens next. But yeah, you're just seeing the importance and overpass of playing this very aggressive style through connector, getting outside of B short, getting that early control. It really does make the T side that much more difficult to operate on.
And once again, just could be a few pistols invested. One of the rounds they were actually a little bit more successful was based off these pistols. Art's been caught a few times, but I guess in this sort of match, it doesn't really matter as much as it might do going later on into the tournament against B. I would call that a fairly ambitious play. I think at this stage, you had to know that there was 2 players waiting for you at Monster, so the flash throw needed to be an absolute god flash to give a chance of killing off anyone. I like the retake of Connector, though. Gives them a chance for some more close-range battles. The problem is Yuri has been pretty stellar so far, and they walk around the angle without actually checking the stairs. Oh, this is just easy pickings for him. 15 kills now in the server. 10 rounds on the board for Furia, and they are dominating.
This is kind of what I expected, Tom. You know, it's been a tournament so far that I think it's safe to say we've had to expect the unexpected. But coming into it, we both felt that Furia would be the heavy favorites for this reason. They are just so much more well-oiled machines. They just got that cohesion. They're clicking. And North, they can't breathe. They must feel so constricted. And look again, Yuri is having no chill. Straight down the throat, straight down the heart of North. AK headshot and just pieces out. Simultaneously, by the way, they pushed 2 players out Monster, and now they're going through short pipe. And if there's any justice in the world, Cajun's going to get both of them. Does he? No, only one. That's not good enough. And now Yuri, who pushed outside of mid, is now shown his hand in connector. And they just can't stop pressing W.
Yeah, I'm going to go back to my point of before that Furia is probably the worst team they ever could have faced against in this tournament. Like, it's just not fair. Like, you could practice, you could strategize, you could look at their demos for a full week straight, and you're just never going to be prepared for some of the stuff that they're attempting to throw in. A 2v2 situation, a good chance for North to finally win a round. Gade's in a fairly good position here. The problem is getting the bomb down when you have someone like Quesarado around might be a little bit more difficult. Cristo succeeds at least. It comes down almost to a couple of 1v1s. They're still trying to work out where Gade actually is, and Henny taking his time with the AWP. But the fact is there's actually nobody watching towards Monster. They've got to be fairly careful because so many angles left to check. And again, I like the call. Take some map control, push forward, make it more difficult for them to try and retake, try and find these remaining players. And Gade now having such a powerful angle versus Quesarado. It's left all onto Henny. He's got no time, and the IGL will lead them through a second round.
Damn, Gade. Okay, 2 very brisk one taps, super crisp. And with that, Furia will have enough for a bye, including a double AWP going into the last round of the half. They're juggling a few weapons on North as well. It is going to be Kriaz down to a Mach 10, however. Far from ideal. Cristo could have dropped a Galil, so that's quite interesting. Maybe a read into what's coming up next. That Molotov's missed a few times, and it will again here for Furia. So going back to the drawing board, maybe work on that Molotov. But a number of times North have actually been able to just walk straight out. It hasn't really cost Furia, though, in terms of lives. I feel like they've had a good idea of when it's not landed. They can obviously hear it exploding in the air. It makes a very different sort of sound. So they've not pushed behind it and potentially died off the back of it. But Yuri, again, getting into Connector. And he's facilitated this spot because of Henny's position. But now that Henny's thrown in the smoke and can't really support him, Yuri is basically all alone. He just has to take as many North players with him as possible, and he won't get a single one. And that will now be a weapon traded up if Kriaz can get into position.
Well, Gade isn't even going to spot the man who kills him. Straight through the wood, Vinny has found the trade, but it's an upgrade of rifles, and actually a 4v4 is not too bad for the T side. Well, talk about players pushing Monster. He's thinking of pushing Spawn, but after being spotted, not only will he retreat, but actually the T's have started making their rotation back. The problem is, I almost think that this is something that Furia will predict, and as we've noted throughout this match so far, Furia very happy to take that toilet's control.
Yeah, they love it, man. And they've got an interesting off-angle setup as well. This isn't a spot that you typically play in, but the Quesarado can sit there because Henny had the long side of bathroom covered. And now Vinny, who's made a move up, has Henny to pivot off. Oh, it's just beautiful. Flawless plays from Furia time after time. And they will lead, as expected, 11-4 going into the second half. I think it's safe to say any doubts about Furia's current performances and current form has been put to bed, at least in that first half, and now North are on the CT side. Maybe this is where they can get a little bit more stabilized. Furia basically bullied them with just hyper-aggressive plays time after time. But let's be honest, Tom, you've got to expect that from Furia. Their reputation surely precedes them at this stage.
Yeah, there's one thing expecting Furia, and then there's another thing doing something about it. I think many teams have started to go, well, I know what they're going to do, and then got killed while they're doing it. Already, though, not a bad start for Vinny. He's going to get rid of Christo, who is yet to really show up to the server, unfortunately. And, well, with what is probably a long road starting here, I don't think it's necessarily a surprise.
Yeah, they're already running into some potholes, some twists and turns, over facing a cliff, but Henny has put the Glock to use alongside Art. There's only one kill that sprung up, make that two. Lecro, awkward angle with the USP. You can see that Furia are respecting not only the rotation, but Lecro's positioning, but Case Serato on the fadeaway takes the head off of Gade. Now, Lecro does have a good read of it. He comes down towards the B site. He's anticipating there will be some action down here, but they've sent Art alone. They've kept the bomb and connector. He bypasses. Does he hold on to this? This could be such a huge brain play from Lecro. He knows that Art is going to be the information gatherer. He posts in position. He gets himself one kill, and he knows that Art is over here, so he can instantly put his aim down sight to try and take off the head of Art. He's running out of ammunition, and he's running out of health, and he goes down. But I've got to say, Tom, that is such a nice effort. You could see what he was trying to go for, and a part of me really wanted to see him succeed.
Yeah, for sure. Big brain, high IQ plays coming out from Lecro, because the easy thing to do there is just kill Art and then try and win the round from there. But you know that in the 1v2, chances are the remaining players of Furia are still going to win this, so he looks to try and deny any chance of a plant, catch the players out as they rotate. Unfortunately, shot didn't quite land this time, but still a very intelligent play. Nonetheless, 5 deagles. We've got a full-on deco. Plenty of utility invested into as well. The problem is, this is a very fast play coming out of Furia. It could come back to bite them because there's actually a hell of a lot of North players here.
There are. Gade and Kriaz, though, have been tagged down so heavily. Kriaz still threads the deagle shot into Yuri. Gade has been put out of his misery for round 17. Now more CTs are showing their hand. There's also one wrapping around the back. That will be Christo, who's invested pretty heavily. He's not dipping out for the deagle, or the AWP, I should say, anytime soon. Henny is coming straight through the smoke. Case Serato spins around on a swivel and shovels away Christo, and the rest is falling into place. There were a couple moments, Tom, I agree, where you're worrying a little bit for Furia walking into the stack, but to be fair, they didn't overextend and they played it wisely.
Yeah, obviously this is still like Furia facing off against a weaker team, but I don't think you can really doubt anything to do with Henny's individual level. Like, he's been performing very well so far, 17 and 9, seemingly having a pretty decent day individually, and he was playing very aggressively in that CT half as well. Now the stack, again, it's a good read. They've got everybody in place. They might be able to get a kill or two here as they all looked around the corner. Nice initial shots coming in from Kriaz, but the trades come in thick and fast.
Yeah, it was basically the eco after going for some deagles, and Christo will have the AWP. So this is what they've been building towards on their CT side. They knew that the pistol was paramount. They lost it. And now that road that you touched on before has suddenly hit a very steep incline. Things are getting a little bit too close for comfort. Keep in mind as well, this was North's pick, Tom, and they're being destroyed on it. So with Inferno up next, I'm not too sure what to expect. Christo hasn't had much chance to do a great deal of anything in this game, and now he's got his hand on the AWP. I want to see what this guy has in store. I want to see him start to tee off. Cajun tagged down heavily in connector. Nades and flashes ripping all around him, and with 15 HP, he'll feel like this area is just way too hot for him to hold on to. Christo flicks and misses. And that is a huge part of North's defense that goes with it.
Maybe a few nerves creeping in. First map back on the roster that's already kicked you once. Kriaz, though, he's had his moments. Just try and find art once again, and we'll turn things back into a 3-on-3 situation. Quick rotation, though, coming out from Furia. They've already looked to pounce on the other side of the map, and as said, Henny has just not been missing today. 19 and 9. I believe he's the top fragger in the entire server. While Gade, he's had a few hero moments. I think 2 of the rounds that they've managed to win have pretty much solely been down to him. The problem is at this point is, are you going to win the 2v3? Probably not. Are you going to win a map from 15-4 down? Probably not. So there's not really a good scenario here. They go for it, they lose, they're in a worse position than before. They don't go for this, they save, they have to win 11 rounds in a row.
Yep, it's the heads you win, tails I lose. You know, there is no easy way forward. Absolutely agree. And even the position where he's looking to try and save, by the way, he may still die here. So, yeah, he will be turning away and just sprinting back towards the sanctuary of B site. Looking to hold on to his M4. Kriyaz are miles away in playground, keeps his AK. But now 11 map points come up. With those 2 save guns, they can get a decent buy together, but yeah, I think you're onto something there, Tom. It does feel like Cristo is just very, very uncomfortable. Understandable. As I said, it is a baptism by fire. You know, you come into this game, there's a lot of eyes on you. Obviously, a lot of the community is going to be curious as to how this roster change comes together. And you've just been completely and utterly dispatched without really breaking a sweat for the Brazilians.
Oh dear. Well, it doesn't look like it's about to get any better. The beginning of the end, it seems, as Vinny starts off with an opener. This is to look at positives, not really for North, but in general. Furia playing this well and just dominating is a very good sign. Like, this is what I wanted to see from them, to have any faith that they were going to do well in this tournament. They needed to come out here and just put on a show, and they have absolutely obliterated North from start to finish. It is looking like the last 2 players of Cajun and Cristo, experience with youth, attempting to win a 2 versus 4 situation. I'm not holding my breath, Vince.
No, that would definitely be a good idea, Tom. I don't want to lose you. Because, I mean, Cristo and Cajun, they're just dead men. They're dead men walking. They just don't know it yet. And now Cajun, 13 HP. Lucky for some, unlucky for others. And Furia have put this down. They've administered the mercy. They finished it off quick. And so for that, I suppose North can be thankful. But their choice of map could not really have gone any worse, Tom. It was never close in any